Faraz Abdul Moid. I'm a senior at UIC and here with Kyle, um, talking about my religion, Islam. First and foremost, I think something like this is very helpful and very fruitful because opening the door for questions and exchange of ideas, that's the only way we can remove any misconceptions that exist, that do exist, any misinformation that exists, any misunderstandings that exist. So this is the only way to go about it. So I find that to be very beneficial. So one thing is that, to you, Kyle, is that be very open with questions, ask whatever you wish, no insult will be taken,
Okay.
everything will be all good. First and foremost, as a Muslim, the most important thing in my life, before anything, is adherence to God and His laws, and the way of His Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Now, as Muslims, we simply believe in Allah, which is just the Arabic term for God. And the interesting thing about the word Allah in Arabic is that if you take the word God, you can turn it into gods, goddess, goddesses. But the term Allah, which means God in Arabic, there's no other form for it. There's no plural, there's no dual, there's no feminine, there's no masculine. It's simply Allah. So Islam places a lot of importance on monotheism. And Muslims consider Islam to be the true monotheistic faith. And then we accept Muhammad, peace be upon him, from 680. He was born and lived through 680s. We consider him to be the final and last messenger of God. And we accept, honor, and look up to Jesus. We look up to Moses, Abraham, Noah, Adam, so many other prophets that are mentioned in the Bible and in the Old Testament. And we accept them as our prophets as well, but we accept Muhammad as the last and final prophet. So that's just a quick intro. And besides that,
Um, we talked about in class the mosque that they're planning on building around in New York City, around the Ground Zero, and I know there's been a lot of protests and such about that. So how do you feel about that?
I feel very upset about that. Because, I mean, there's two ways to go about it for me as a Muslim. Number one, we can say, okay, we won't build a mosque there and move away. But inside we feel, why should that be the case? I am not guilty of the crimes committed on 9/11. Some of my brothers who deviated from the path that I am on, meaning Muslims, if Muslims committed this act, they misused our religion. They did not use our religion. They used their own ideas, their own intellect, their own practices and ways and thoughts to commit such a horrendous crime. And because of that, because they were Muslims and because they just used the word Islam out there, because of that, there's all this trouble now. There's all this confusion. There's all this bad blood. So I think to myself that, as a Muslim, I think to myself that Islam has nothing to do with 9/11. Islam has nothing. Muslims had to do something with 9/11, yeah, because maybe it was Muslims who actually did it. But Islam has nothing to do with it. So a mosque is a symbol of Islam. So why should that be removed when Islam is not responsible for it? Of course, taking into account cultural sensitivity, Muslims can't say, you know what, we won't build it there. But then at the same time, deep inside, we think, we're not responsible for this. We're one of you. I'm an American, although I look quite different, right? But that's why I live in America. I wouldn't live here if I wasn't able to dress this way. That's the awesome thing about America. I can dress this way. I can live in whatever way I want. As long as I adhere to the laws and the Constitution of America and I don't break any laws, I can live in whatever way I want. That's the beautiful thing. And one of the things in regards to the mosque issue was that all this rhetoric started coming about. And one of the things they said that, oh, now they have a mosque, near Ground Zero. Now, by the way, the mosque was near Ground Zero from before as well. But now there's a mosque on Ground Zero. Now the Muslims will take over. They will try to implement Sharia law. Sharia law is the code and conduct of Islamic laws derived from our holy book, the Quran, and from the sayings and practices of our Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. They started saying that, the Quran, they will impose Sharia upon all Americans. First and foremost, what's one of the laws of Sharia? One of the laws in Sharia is that you adhere to the laws of the country you're living in. You cannot impose your own laws upon other people while living in another country. The only place where Sharia law can be applied is where there is a government that follows Sharia, the Quran, and the way Quran, our holy book, and the Hadith with the sayings and practices of our Prophet as the constitution. We live in America. America already has a constitution, and one of the guidelines for Muslims living in non-Muslim lands is that you adhere to the way the constitution and the laws of that land. Unless there is something that completely goes against you, in that case, you could petition the government peacefully to give you some leeway in that. And if not, then you would have to leave and practice a certain aspect of your religion elsewhere. But you cannot break the laws of the land you are living in. Right?
Okay.
So this is a key thing. And I'll just give you one example. Sorry, this
Okay.
answer is
No,
a bit
that's
long.
fine.
Give you one example.
Got time.
Me as an American Muslim, Islam is above everything. So the laws of Islam mandate that I follow the laws of America. So if at 3 a.m. I'm at a stoplight and there's no one around, there's no cops around, there's no camera around, I could technically go through the red light and not get caught. However, because Islam's laws and regulations tell me to obey the laws of the land, even if I don't get caught, even if I don't get caught in not following the laws of the land, then I will be held accountable according to my religion. Why did you break the law by going through the red light? Even though it was 3 a.m., no one was around, no one caught you. So as you can see, being a true Muslim who follows Sharia law makes that Muslim a better American. Because in the end, he has to follow the laws of the land. So that's just one point I wanted to make.
No, that's very good. When you were during the service, sir, you talked about the story about how when the Russians, the communists, the atheists went into Egypt to try to make them or get them to believe what they believe, and talked about the whole thing with the Quran. Yeah.
That incident took place during the presidency of Jamal Abdul Nasser. He was the president of Egypt, I believe in the 60s or 70s. And at that time, the Cold War was still taking place. So the Soviets at that time wanted some support on their side. So they went to Jamal Abdul Nasser, the president of Egypt, and they were trying to get him to change his philosophy of running the government into a communist philosophy. And he, as a Muslim, said, communism wouldn't work for us because part of communism is atheism, rejection of God, and certain other aspects of communism which completely go against the ways dictated by Islam. So he wanted to present something to the communists to show that, we are going to adhere to Islam. So what he did was he took a man by the name of Qari Abdul Basit. Abdul Basit was very famous for his beautiful recitation of the Quran. There's a whole study process, degree and certification to become a person who is called a Qari, who is an expert in the recitation of the Quran. He took Abdul Basit with him to a meeting with the Soviets of that time. And before he presented his case of why he did not want to take the side of the Russians, I'm not sure, there's some other political stuff going on, but this is just one incident. He said to them, before I present my case, I want to present to you something from my country, from Egypt. This is a man, Abdul Basit. He recites the Quran. He's an expert in that, and he will share a recitation of the Quran with you. So he began reciting, and the Quran is recited in poetic form. So kind of like the Psalms are written in poetic form, the Quran is also written in poetic form. So he began reciting. And when he began reciting, it's in Arabic, the Soviet officials, 4 or 5 of them started crying. And afterwards they said, why were you crying during this recitation? Because it's very common for Muslims when they hear the Quran and they hear the meaning and message behind it, they begin weeping out of just their connection with God. These Soviets, they started crying. So they said, why are you crying? And they said, we don't know. We don't understand Arabic. We don't understand what you were reciting. We don't understand a single word. But it was so beautiful that, our hearts just overflowed and our tears started flowing from our eyes. So this is something for Muslims to believe in, that Muslims believe in the miraculous nature of the Quran and the beauty of the Quran. And that's something, I guess, for non-Muslims just to examine themselves. But as Muslims, we believe in the miraculous nature of the Quran and the beauty of the Quran, and this story exemplified that belief.
Yeah, I thought that was a very interesting story. But do you believe that the tolerance, after 9/11, do you believe that the tolerance is getting better with people learning more about the religion? And I know you think that it can always get better, but do you think it is getting better since that time?
From what I have experienced, and I'm just saying from personal experience, I don't feel too positive about how things are going. In general, I've lived in America my whole life, right? My parents brought me here when I was 2 years old, so I don't even remember anything about my home country. I've been living here. Americans are very, very, very tolerant people, very tolerant people, and that's why I'm an American myself. And because that's one of the main aspects I like about America. But some intolerance does exist. Misconceptions do exist, especially, even when I'm in normal garb, right? Your average, just jeans and a t-shirt, but I have this beard, right? So it kind of scares people. And I can understand why it does scare people. But in general, I think Americans are very tolerant. And there's certain factions that are intolerant, and there's certain factions that are just confused. And I think from what I have experienced, most Americans fall into that category, where they're just confused. So if they see a Muslim who looks like, looks like someone from the Arab countries or someone from the Indian subcontinent, where I am from, when they see it, all these thoughts occur in their mind, and they don't know how exactly to go about dealing with that individual. Does he know English? If he does, is he a normal American? Is he not? All these things go through their minds. So I think most Americans fall into the category of confused, not knowing what's going on. And learning after 9/11, I believe some of that has gotten better. A lot of it has gotten better. Yet it still exists. And there is some intolerance, there's a lot of tolerance, and there's a lot of confusion. So things are getting somewhat better, but I don't know. I'm not too... The way things are presented in the media, that's what makes me a bit pessimistic. That's the only thing. Besides that, I think things are okay.
Okay. Well, yeah, that's mostly the reason why it's important to have education and have classes like sociology and history of religions and such, is to help people realize that, these people are human beings, and that just because they practice a different religion or have a different God or whatever, that they're still human beings and they're still peaceful. So I thank you very much for helping me out with this. And
Thank you for actually opening this up.
All right. Thank you very much.